Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today and welcome to this educational presentation where today I want to talk to you about the perfect method for buying low and selling high. Now, I know a lot of you would say to yourselves, well, Steve, this goes against what you always teach in your presentations, that if you're going to buy at the low levels, you're really bottom fishing and you're trying to pick bottoms. And if you're going to sell at the high points, you're trying to, say that the market won't go any higher and something's overbought. Well, in all actuality, that's not really true as long as you're trading a pullback method. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, if you're not familiar with what a pullback is, here's the standard definition of a pullback. In an overall uptrend, a pullback is either a large, moderate, or shallow sell-off. You see, that's all it is. We're not bucking the trend. We're just trying to buy those little dips in prices. For example, as we look at this chart here, we see in letter A, the overall trend obviously is up, right? So what we want to do is we want to buy on these shallow, moderate, or large sell-offs or dips in price. That's where the high probability area is to buy, where you'll be buying towards the low. Now, conversely, if we're looking for a sell definition, all right, well, it's just the opposite. Let me just guess it. Someone is saying, is the volume on? If you can all hear me, just kindly type in yes or no, why, and if this person is having difficulty, it may be your own computer connection, okay? Yes, everyone seems to be hearing okay, so you may want to log off and then log back on again. All right, let's talk about a sell definition for a pullback trade. It's just the same thing. We're just looking at the opposite side of the coin. In an overall downtrend, a pullback is either a large, moderate, or shallow rally. So once again, we look at this chart here in urban. It doesn't take much to notice that the overall trend is down, right? So what we want to do, if we're a pullback trader, is to simply look for those areas where we have a bounce or a large, moderate, or shallow type of rally. That's the high probability area to sell, to go short, to buy puts, whatever you want to do, because you'll be selling towards the high. So the trouble is, it's difficult to pinpoint and to identify these because many times you don't know when it's just a little sell-off or a little bounce, or if it's the actual beginning of a new trend. So the question comes up is there a strategy that's designed to identify these high probability pullback setups? Well, the good news is that yes, there is. And we're going to be talking about that today. And everything we're going to share with you today is by applying this strategy on our platform, the PTS Primo Charting Platform, that actually identifies these pullback strategy setups for you. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo, president and founder of Specialist Trading. If you're new to my webinars, as you just probably saw in the first opening statements, we're all about educating you so that you can fully understand what you're dealing with when you're trading, and then so that you most importantly can make your own trading decisions. That's really the cornerstone behind everything we do. I know most of you have gone to webinars, if you've purchased some $10,000 or even more, $15,000, $20,000 system or method or indicator that basically just spits out signals for you where you have no idea what they're based off of or what they're using. Just basically have to follow along, or else maybe you subscribe to some blog, or maybe some signal service, or maybe you just wait with bated breath at the end of every day to listen to the pundits on TV to find out what they want to do. Well, either way you look at it, you are taking your cues, you're taking your control from someone or something else that's telling you what to do. If someone likes a stock on TV, well, then you start to look at it, right? And you say, well, maybe, they're so right all the time. They must know what they're doing. So I guess I'll buy it. Or maybe the signal service or the chat room where they're following a stock or a future or currency pair, if they like it, or maybe even if they don't like it, if they sell it, well, you figure, okay, I'll do the same thing. Don't worry, this is the way everyone is trained, myself included. When I first started trading some 45 years ago, I was trained to do the exact same thing. I looked at earnings, I listened to all the so-called trading gurus, I went to all the, we didn't have websites then, but we had all the newsletters, and I basically was doing the same thing most of you are doing today, which is, to speak it bluntly, you're giving your power away. You're basically taking yourself out of the game and letting someone else trade for you. Well, here's the one thing I've learned in my over 4 decades of trading. The traders who are still trading, who are still consistent, are not the ones that listen to anyone or anything else, but they're the ones that make their own trading decisions. Now, sure, they've learned from others. They've learned different techniques and methods and styles and even strategies. But ultimately, they decide where they're entering. They decide whether they're exiting at this point or the other, and they decide where they're placing their stop. And for all intents and purposes, they're deciding whether they want to take the trade or not. You see, it's not like a system where you have to take the trade in order to get some statistics. You can decide for yourself whatever you want to do. It's traders who use these parameters that I have found in my 4 decades plus. These are the only ones that are still trading. These are the ones that have survived. So that's my goal at Specialist Trading, to share with you all the things I've accumulated in my going on 45 years of trading, and teach you these things so that ultimately you can make your own trading decisions. Once again, this is the only way, in my opinion, you will be a consistent trader. All right. So with that said, before we begin, let's just take a moment to view our disclaimer. We're required by law to share this with you, so please take a moment to view it. I'm going to share with you a lot of performance results using this pullback method, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Also, please remember, since we are first and foremost an educational company, all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, if you'd like to get more education on a daily basis, I see we have a lot of new names here in the webinar today. If you're not familiar with my work or our concepts and how we teach, please feel free to follow us on Twitter. You may want to copy down our handle right there. I post different information, educational information on a daily basis. Sometimes I post signals our strategies have generated. Other times I post little bits of financial wisdom. But there's lots of great free education on a daily basis. So please feel free to follow us on Twitter. So as I said in the opening statements, we are different from other webinars in the fact that we only want to educate you. That's our only purpose. We don't have chat rooms at Specialist Trading or Pro Trader Strategies, my sister site. We don't believe in signal service where we tell you what to buy or sell on a nightly basis. Remember, those are things you have to decide. What we do is simply teach you how to trade with the specialist edge. Why? Because a good mentor, a good teacher does not trade for you. He teaches you how to do that so you can make your own trading decisions. That's the way I was taught some 4 decades ago, and that's what has sustained me now going on 45 years, and hopefully it will be able to do the same for you. Now, we're going to begin just a few seconds, but a few announcements before we begin. I see that the volume problem was cleared up. And remember, if you're having technical issues where you don't see or hear the screen clearly, don't worry. Many times it's just your internet connection. Oftentimes, if you log off and then log back on again, it will be resolved and everything will be fine. But not to worry, even if you are still having issues, this presentation is being recorded. So each and every one of you will get a link to this recording at the end of the presentation so you can watch it over and over again as often as you like. Now, the only other announcement I'd like to make also is we're going to take questions at the end. So please, if you have a question, wait till the very end. I promise I'll get to each and every one of them. And as you see in the chat box, please remember, this is not an interactive Zoom presentation. This is more of a webinar, a fixed PowerPoint presentation. So please disable all your cameras and microphones. This is just an educational PowerPoint presentation, okay? All right, with that stated, let's begin today's presentation. And we're going to be talking about pullback trading in today's class. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the process, let's just share with you what this process is, because it's very simple, but it's very difficult to identify. All right, so the first step is that you want to look for the beginning of a trend. And remember, it doesn't matter if we're looking at a 5-minute chart of the E-minis, a 4-hour chart of the euro dollar, a monthly chart of Bitcoin, or a daily chart of stocks. Makes no difference, but you want to see some type of trend established. In this case, it's up. Now, with all trends, we hit some type of a roadblock, all right? And the trend starts to head the opposite way. Now, for all we know, this could be the beginning of a downtrend. And this is the way most traders assume. They think, oh, that's it. We topped out. We were overbought. That trading room I go to says we've hit some type of resistance, so we have to sell, right? Or we have to get out. But that may be true. But there's also the chance that we may just be creating a shallow, a moderate, or a large pullback, all right? So what you need are some requirements, some rules to tell you if that has been generated. Let's just say that all the requirements were met. So this is not, in all actuality, a sell-off. This is not the beginning of a trend. If the requirements were met, this is simply a pullback. meaning that it's a high probability point of entry. Because what happens after that, if it's a valid pullback, well, it's a resumption of trend. So what you're doing is buying at a lower level, okay? But remember, the overall trend was still up. This was just a large, a moderate, or a shallow sell-off. So this brings us back to the original question I asked. Is there a strategy that's designed to identify these high probability pullback entries, going through the entire process and telling you exactly where these requirements need to be met? Well, yes, there is. It's strategy number 9. This is one of our premier pullback methods. Now, we have a number of pullback methods at Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies, but this is, for all intents and purposes, probably our most popular pullback method because of its simplicity. In fact, it only has about 2 or 3 rules. It's very simple. And let me share with you some of the highlights, all right? It's based on a proprietary indicator, or a number of indicators, actually. Some of our strategies are based on patterns. Well, this one is based off an indicator method, okay? The beauty of strategy number 9, once again, you can apply it to any market, any time frame, and any direction. So if you like to trade multiple markets, let's say you like to trade cryptos, and on top of that you like to trade stocks, well, guess what? You can apply the same method with the same requirements to each one. It's not like you have to buy a separate crypto pullback strategy or a separate E-mini future intraday strategy for strategy number 9. No, you can use the same thing. That's the beauty of strategy number 9. Now, here's one of the best advantages of this. You can apply this to option trading. I know we have a number of option traders at Specialist Trading and Pro Trader Strategies. The difficult thing many times, and it happens with some of our strategies, is that a lot of our strategies will generate signals on the way up. But this makes it difficult for option traders, because if you're buying a call or some type of spread strategy with a bias to the upside, well, you're paying up for that because since it closed in your direction, the premiums are very high. So it's going to be very expensive. The beauty of strategy number 9 is that, as we said, you're going to be buying near the lows. That means the signals will be generated at lower prices. If you're an option trader, the premiums will be much less. And so you'll be able to pick up some inexpensive calls or some inexpensive spread strategy, all right? Now remember, how you decide to trade is once again up to you. This is not an options class. We do not generate signals and say which option to buy. That's your decision. What our job is as an educator, as a mentor, is to teach you how to identify these high probability setups. How you decide to apply them in the market is up to you. Whether you use options, futures, currency pairs, stocks, that's entirely up to you. Now, with all of our methods, we don't suggest, we always require that every student and every member paper trade first. So if you decide to become a student of mine in the strategy number 9 course, you must paper trade first. So many students get excited, they see the simplicity in this method, and they jump in, and they jump in too early. And inevitably they lose money. And then we get an email saying, hey, this doesn't work. When we ask them to show their work, we see that everything was followed incorrectly. And that's because you didn't study enough, you just jumped in. So we ask that you paper trade so that you fully understand the process, all right? Our edge here is consistency. I know a lot of you think that consistency means that, well, that means that you have so many more winners than losers, right? Not necessarily. What this means is that it's a 2-step forward, 1-step back process, all right? So it is an awareness that you will have losses from time to time. That's okay, but what you want to do is continue to trade, because oftentimes that loss will be recouped in the very next setup. In fact, I'm going to share with you an example of a loss, and then the very next setup would have been able to recoup that, okay? So these are the highlights. Now, one of the things that I don't like about presenting strategy number 9, with all the other presentations, I usually I'm able to give away some of the rules to the methods, but because of the simplicity, and because it's based on the indicators, I really can't divulge too much of the strategy, other than it's based on pullbacks, and we're looking for an overall trend, either to the upside or to the downside. So basically, strategy number 9 employs 2 simple indicators. That's it. Now, their relationship to the price, not to each other, but to the actual market price, automatically produces these signals, okay? So therefore, in an overall uptrend, the buy signals will be generated during the decline. And as we said earlier, in an overall downtrend, the sell signals will be generated during a rally. Now, as we always state, if you become a student of mine, you'll learn all these rules. This is not a black box. This is not something that's kept from you. You'll learn everything. It's just that it's so simple. If I were to give you just one of the rules, you could most likely reverse engineer it and figure out what the rules are. But the entire process is really about learning how to trade it and how to apply it. It's not so much about learning how to reverse engineer and figure out what the rules are, because most likely you'd still lose money not knowing how to apply this, how to enter, how to exit, how to place your stop. So that's what we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. So let's go over strategy number 9, trading process, okay, and how you would apply it on our platform. All right, remember we looked at that first chart, letter A. Now, we're in an overall uptrend, obviously. We teach you how to identify an overall uptrend. Well, once you look at this, you say to yourself, I think I see some setups right here, okay? After I've learned the rules and I'm paper trading now. But a lot of students say, well, Steve, how do I check my work? How do I know if I'm right? Can I call you up? Can I email you every 5 minutes when I think another signal has been generated? Well, it would be literally impossible. I wouldn't have time to present because of all our thousands of students around the world were giving me calls. I wouldn't have time to teach anybody or trade myself. So here's what we did. We developed the platform, the PTS Primo Charting Platform, to use and to help educate you so that you can check your work. So here's what you do. On the platform, in the green strategy tab where all our methods are, click on strategy number 9. In the drop-down menu here, click on signal arrows. And now you can check your work. If there's an arrow underneath where you thought there was a buy setup, well, then you're properly learning how to validly identify these setups. So guess what? For the first time, you're making your own decisions. Let's check. Well, guess what? There they are. Okay. Right here at the bottom of this large sell-off, at the bottom, near the bottom of this moderate one, and at the bottom of this moderate one as well. Those are nice setups, right? How about this one? We looked at urban. Remember, that was the chart going down and lower. All right, you say to yourself, all right, the overall trend is down. Now I'm looking for these setups in these little bounces, in these little rallies. Now I just can't say, well, wherever there's a bounce, there must be a sell setup, because that doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen all the time. You need the requirements to be met. So once you learn what to look for, what to identify, you want to check your work. Click on strategy number 9, click on signal arrows, and look at the setups right here. Here's what we call a cluster. When you have 2 or more setups right in a row or next to each other, this is a high probability setup that they're going to have most likely a large sell-off going down to the previous low. All right. Here was just a 1-day bounce, but a sell signal was generated. Here was a little mini cluster right here. So you see the power of this method. You are buying at lower levels and selling at higher levels. You see how it really makes it advantageous if you're an option trader as well. All right, so that was the basic process. Let's look at some current strategy number 9 examples. As I often say, I'll go to webinars myself. In fact, I went to a couple of them this week just to check what's out there and how people are teaching and what their methods are, if anyone is stealing from us. But I like to see their means of teaching. And a lot of times they'll use some phenomenal results, use some great examples. And I look at the date and they're anywhere from 6 months to a year old. All right. And if I were in the market to purchase something or to learn from someone, I wouldn't want or even trust someone that cherry picked a great example 6 months ago. I want to know what happened within the last month, within the last couple of weeks, maybe within the last couple of days. Well, I'm going to share with you in all those different time categories. The longest we're looking out is mainly a month, in last month in November. Okay. And everything you're going to be seeing today was generated using our platform. Now, sure, you can learn how to apply strategy number 9 without our platform, but it's so simple because everything is one click away. Remember, we designed this to make trading simple, to make it one click away, one click access, and so that you can check your work. It's an educational platform that I specifically designed with Pro Trader strategies to make trading simple. All right, so let's look at this example here in ADI. All right, this was coming into November. Now, someone looking at this would say, okay, well, we're obviously in an uptrend, okay? But you know what, Steve, I know we're supposed to look for these little sell-offs, but that chat room I go to says that this is tremendously overbought. I mean, look how high we've gone straight up. And I don't want to buy anywhere near here. It's got to come down really low for me to even be interested. And this guy is usually right in that chat room he has. So I'm going to sell it. And so you hold off doing anything. And then a couple of days later, you look and you say, wow, I guess he was right. Look at that. He was right. He picked the top of the market. This thing is most likely going way lower. Look at that gap down. All right. So I don't like this stock at all. In fact, it's in a downtrend, right? So I can't go against the trend. It's obviously in a downtrend. Well, is it really? If you learn the rules, strategy number 9, we're still in an overall uptrend. So this is not in any way something to be looked at as a major downtrend. This is actually just a pullback. Remember, pullbacks are high probability setups. They're not meant to be looked upon as the opposite, as a change of trend. They're high probability setups to go long. So now that you know the rules, you kind of study your work and say, you know what, I think that there may be some buy setups here. Click on strategy number 9, click on signal arrows, and you are right. In fact, you have a little cluster here of 3 buy signals in a row. Very strong, high probability setups here that most likely will work. Had you taken any one of those setups, most likely you could have potentially captured 15 points. So what happened to the guy in the chat room who said that this had topped out, it was overbought? Well, it was overbought for about 3 days, right? And then that was it. Remember, we're not just looking for a 1-2 day, rise or sell off. We're looking for some nice moves here. Let's look at this example now in TMUS, T-Mobile. All right, this was in the beginning of November. Okay, we're in a downtrend. All right, you say to yourself, "Hell, Steve, I don't want to do anything. We're in a downtrend. I mean, maybe it's a pullback, but I don't really know yet." And then check it out. It just gaps up to the upside, and you say to yourself, "Wow, that was a big breakout." You know what? I was looking at the earnings, and the earnings were amazing. I don't want to sell this thing. This looks great. It looks like it's going to keep going up. All right. Well, let's apply the rules to strategy number 9. If you apply the rules and you check your work, click on, because we're actually in an overall uptrend. This is something you would say to yourself, okay, we're in an overall uptrend. Well, then I don't want to sell it, right? Well, let's check our work. We're actually in a pullback. Using the rules that we teach you in the course, you're actually not in an uptrend, you're in a pullback mode. So this is just a pullback to the upside or a high probability sell setup. We click on strategy number 9 tab, click on signal arrows, and another cluster of sell signals. This was just about a month ago in T-Mobile. Had you taken any one of those sell signals, purchased the puts, shorted the stock if you could, that's 12 points coming into this last week in December, okay? So what happened to the major earnings announcements where they went straight up? You see, this is why we don't have any requirements based on fundamental news, because it's too subjective. Take it from me, when I was trading on the floor, I was a specialist. That meant I specialized in trading roughly about 50 or 60 stocks I made markets in. If anyone wanted to buy or sell those stocks, they had to come up to the trader who specialized in making a market. That's what I did. I was a market maker for roughly about 50 or 60 stocks on the Pacific Stock Exchange. So therefore, I had to kind of know about each one of those companies and their inner workings and the direction of the company, and most especially their earnings estimates. I cannot tell you, this was 40 years ago, I cannot tell you how many times I had the earnings estimates where they were supposed to be good and the earnings would come out and they were fantastic earnings and the stock would go straight down. Or I can't tell you how many times there were terrible earnings estimates and the stock would go straight up. So there's no real cut and dry way to trade things that are subjective. We want to trade things that are very cut and dry, rules that are black and white, that if A happens, then B happens. If B happens, then C happens. Not if, well, I guess the street didn't like those numbers. I thought they were good. That's just too difficult to figure out. It's the same thing with support and resistance. One trader's support is another trader's resistance. And trust me, I've traded that and it didn't hold any high levels of consistency. It's the same thing with Fibonacci levels. They're just too subjective. The same thing with Elliott Wave, the same thing with moving average crossovers. They're far too subjective. We want to only use things that are cut and dry, that are very simple and that have stood the test of time. Let's look at SGEN, all right? This was just in October coming into November. What happens when you have a little bounce like this? You say, okay, well, should I sell here? Is this a pullback? Or should I buy here? Is this a pullback to the downside? Well, it makes it difficult. That's why so many traders have a difficult time trading pullbacks, because they don't have a real strong set of requirements to follow. But with strategy number 9, there are a set of requirements that make it simple to know whether the overall trend is up or the overall trend is down. Now, in this case, the overall trend was up, even though you had a sell-off here, because we had a little mini cluster of buy signals right at the very bottom. Had you taken advantage of either of these, 30 points coming into the first or second week of November, just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. How about Facebook, okay? This has been going up. Obviously, we're in an uptrend, right? I mean, it's got to go higher, right? It looks strong. Well, not really. If you knew the requirements of strategy number 9, you would know that that was just a little bounce in an overall downtrend. It had a cluster of sell signals here, very high probability setups, and this was coming into November, 30 points in 1 week. How about Netflix, okay? This was a little over, no, it's about a month ago, actually. We're heading straight up. We look pretty good, right? I mean, this looks like a very strong market, making higher highs, higher lows, the definition of an uptrend, right? Let's say you say to yourself, well, this is an uptrend, but you know what? I think there's some resistance here. I bought that $10,000 course where it looks at the institutions and where they're buying and selling, and they've got some major resistance here. So I don't want to buy it all. I'm going to be a seller. In fact, I think that it should be shorted here, okay? Well, for a couple of days, you're right. You feel really good about yourself and you say, hey, this thing's going to come really lower. Those institutions are never wrong. I always follow them in that $10,000 course I took, so I'm going to keep selling. Well, that would have been the wrong thing to do because the overall trend was up and you had a little mini cluster of buy setups here. Remember, in an overall uptrend, these sell signals are actually high probability setups. These are advantageous. They're not something to avoid. And had you taken them, well, coming into December, that was 50 points to the upside in just a little over a couple of weeks. Here's an example in BIIB, Biogen. Sometimes we have a minor pullback. Remember, it can be either a large, shallow, or very small pullback. Here we have a downward move and a little 2-day bounce. Someone would say, well, that's not enough. Well, actually, for strategy number 9, it's so sensitive. That was enough to know to go short, and potentially you could have captured 45 points coming into this last week. Let's look at Adobe here, okay? There's a sell-off. This was in just about a month ago in November. Right here, a buy signal was generated. And in roughly about a week, you had a very nice profit, okay? But let me show you what happens so many times. If you don't know how to actually trade, it's not so much about identifying. You have to know how to manage and protect your money. Because if you don't know how to do that, well, most likely you give it all back. And if you weren't quick, your one-time profit turns into a major loss. Let me show you a little trick here. I'm going to share with you in just a few moments how you could have actually exited right here near the highs of that little bounce and taken a quick 45 points in just about a week before this happened. I'll share with you how to do that in just a few seconds. Let's look at Zoom, okay? This was just about 3 weeks ago. Someone looking at this would say, well, Steve, the market looks pretty good. We have a bullish engulfing pattern right here. I bought that course on candlestick patterns. And on top of that, like I said, I've still spent $10,000 on that institutional support and resistance, and this is major support. And look, we got right there and bounced. So I have to be a buyer. I'm sorry, Steve, I cannot follow your concepts because, the market is telling me to actually buy because it's going higher. Well, remember, the market's not telling you that. Something outside of the market is telling you that. All of our courses and methods are based on market behavior. They're not based off what the institutions are doing or some candlestick process. They're based off market behavior. And the market is actually telling us the overall trend is down and that this little 2 or 3 day bounce is a selling opportunity. It's not a buying opportunity. Even though there was a bullish engulfing pattern, even though their $10,000 course told you that the institutions were buying, this is a selling opportunity in Zoom. And this happened just about 3 weeks ago, and the stock fell 85 points coming into last week. All right, DXCM, all right? What would we do here? Are we a buyer or are we a seller? If we look at this here, it looks like resistance, right? We got right up to this point, and we have a little, change in trend here. It looks like we have a little reversal pattern, and then we have a bearish engulfing pattern. So this is pretty negative. I don't think I want to do anything with this, right? That's the way most traders would make their decision. That's the way I used to make my decisions 45 years ago. but I didn't base it off what the market was telling me. First thing I have to ask myself, what's the overall trend? Well, the overall trend actually is up. So this little 2-day shallow sell-off is a buying opportunity because strategy number 9 is so sensitive, it generated a buy signal. And this was just about 3 weeks ago, 95 points coming into a month, or I'm sorry, about a month and a half ago, 95 points coming into last month. Let's look at PayPal, okay? We have a little, about a shallow to moderate bounce here. But look what happened. We had a first sell signal right here, okay? And this is what we're going to be talking about, consistency. Had you taken that very first signal, you may have gotten stopped out. But look what happened on the second signal. You could have recouped 90 points. So just to let you know that they don't all work out. Remember, we're talking about consistency. Consistency is an awareness of losses from time to time. Had you taken this trade and put a real tight stop in, maybe right here, you would have been stopped out 2 days later. But look what happened. Another sell signal was generated. So you would have to gotten right back in if you wanted to be able to recoup, and plus a lot more than that 10 or so many points you lost. All right, let's look at Tesla. Now this just happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Tesla was going straight up, and then we ran into the sell-off. A lot of people were saying, wow, that's really major. This thing's got a lot of room to go to the downside. But for all the strategy number 9 course members, they saw this as a buying opportunity because all the requirements were met to have just a pullback setup. In fact, there were 3 here. This was a cluster of buy setups. And look what happened. We had a nice little bounce here, okay? Now, the main thing we teach you in our course is, sure, how to identify these, but we also teach you how to protect your investment, also teach you how to place stops so that you can do that. Because as we all know, nothing lasts forever. Had you held on, you most likely would have given away a good portion of that profit. Here's the great thing we have here. This is called one of our exits. It's called a range extension exit. If you simply double click on the buy arrow, it will generate these exit levels. This is exit level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, if you're the type of trader that likes to get in and out, you don't want to hold your money overnight too long, you would use exit levels 1 and 2. If you want to be more like a swing trader and you want to hold on a little bit longer, you use exits level 3 and 4. But we always suggest that most traders should get out at exit level number 4. And that would have been a wise decision because look what happened. We got right up there before we exited. And that would have given you a nice 150 points in a little over a week before the market changed direction. So this is just one of the extra advantages all of our course members have and all of our PTS Primo Charting Platform members have as well. You won't find this anywhere else other than on the PTS Primo Charting Platform. Okay, let's talk about consistency again. All right, we're looking at Moderna. This was just in October coming into last month, November. We got a sell signal off this little shallow pullback to the upside. And then look what happened 3 days later. Most likely you're stopped out, right? I don't think you would have sold here and then gotten out the next day. So you have a losing trade. It happens. Remember, there will be losses from time to time. Had you just used a very moderate stop placement, most likely you would have lost around 10 points, okay? Now, what most traders do, especially beginning students, they like to sulk. They like to go, complain about, hey, this stuff doesn't work. I just wasted all my money. My first trade is a loss. This guy's a hack. I don't trust any of this stuff, right? I mean, you may have felt that before, or many of you have thought that it's something you've purchased in the past, but you haven't had a consistent method because remember, a consistent method is one that's able to recoup its losses sooner than later. So had you gone and sulked in the corner, you would have missed another sell signal 3 days later. So you got to get back on your horse again because that's your chance to make back that 10 points and potentially you could have made 130 in less than 2 weeks. So this is what we're talking about, consistency. Consistency is an awareness. You will have losing trades. That's okay. If you keep your losses to a bare minimum and you learn how to manage them, which we teach you in the course, a consistent method will be able to recoup those losses. All right, so let's review before I tell you about a great offer we have for all the attendees today. Remember, a pullback is either a large, moderate, or shallow sell-off in an overall uptrend. That gives you the opportunity to buy at lower levels. Or it's a large, moderate, or shallow rally in an overall downtrend. That gives you the ability to sell, to go short at higher levels. And the way to do that is by using our premier pullback method, strategy number 9. All right, it's based on proprietary indicators. You can apply it to any market, any time frame, any direction. I know we just mainly focused on stocks, but we have traders around the world who use this on currency pairs, who use it on futures, intraday futures. I know I use it on intraday future trading. We have pullback. We even have commodity traders using this, also Bitcoin and cryptocurrency traders. All right. If you're an option trader, this is an ideal method to trade. Why? Because you're not going to have to pay up for these premiums with a lot of these setups, mainly because these setups are identified for buy setups at lower levels so that you can pick up some inexpensive calls or an inexpensive type of spread strategy. All right. Same thing works for going short. But please remember, we're requiring all of our students to paper trade first. We don't just want you to jump in and start trading with real capital first. You have to paper trade. Our edge is consistency, as we just shared with you a couple of examples. You may have losses from time to time. That's okay. A consistent method is one that's able to recoup those losses. So ask yourself, do you think this pullback strategy, strategy number 9, can help your trading going into 2022? We've only really got about 3 or so more weeks left in this year. Do you want to take your trading to the next level? Let me share with you a great opportunity to do that. Here's our special attendee offer for all of you taking time out to come hear this presentation today. We're going to offer you strategy number 9 along with the PTS Primo Charting Platform. You're going to get detailed video course instruction. You'll learn all of the entries, all of the exits, and all of the stop placement rules. You'll get the entire course rules. This includes add-ons as well. If you have one of the most prominent platforms as well, such as TradeStation, Metastock, MT4, Sierra Charts, Ninja Trader, even Thinkorswim, with a few slight alterations, I should say, you can apply the add-ons, meaning that you will be able to see the signals being generated on those platforms as well. Now, here's the best thing about this, though. It's not just strategy number 9. We're also throwing in the PTS Primo Charting Platform. Remember, you can use this on one of those other platforms, but with the simplicity of strategy number 9, along with all the other things included, such as the scanner, such as the automatic generated exit levels and entry levels and stop placement levels, you'll only find this on our platform. For example, let's look at something that just happened in the last couple of weeks, okay? You're looking at GCP here, okay? Applied Technology. Someone would say, hey, Steve, this is in a downtrend. I went to that chat room. The guy doesn't like this. We're going to wait for more confirmation before we even think about buying this. Well, not really, because had you scanned for this roughly a couple of weeks ago, you would have seen that a buy signal was generated on the 26th of November. You could have purchased it on the close of that day or the next day and potentially captured a 40-point gain in the stock in just 1 week. Now, this was coming into, I believe, Monday. This snapshot was taken. This is what I was talking about, where I don't just want to share with you things that are 6 months to a year old. I want to show you examples that happened within the last week or so. In fact, this just happened within the last couple of days, this next example. Let's look at TRUP, okay? What would we do here? Should we sell this? I mean, someone would say, hey, Steve, it looks a little overbought, but at the same time, it looks like, it's in an uptrend. So I don't know what to do here. Well, let's go through the process I shared with you in order to have a valid pullback setup. Step number 1 is the beginning of a trend, right? So obviously we have a nice little upward trend here. Step number 2 is the pullback. This is the pullback phase. Someone would say, well, Steve, it looks like a downtrend. Well, it could be a downtrend, but according to the rules of strategy number 9, this is not a downtrend. This is a pullback. This is a buying opportunity. Now, once again, with our platform, you would have seen that 2 buy signals were generated here. One last Thursday, and then another one on Monday of this week. So within the last 4 days, you could have had 2 chances to go long this stock. And look what happened yesterday. Step number 3 was the resumption of trend. So basically, the stock gained 40 points in 3 days. Remember, we're not cherry picking things that are a year or 2 old. We're showing you stuff that happens all the time. This just happened within the last 3 or 4 days. So strategy number 9 is why we say this is our premier pullback method. You could have taken advantage of this. Had I given this presentation maybe a week or 2 ago, and you were already trading with this, you learned all the rules and had ended your paper trading phase, you could have taken advantage of this past week. Therefore, that's why we always say a year from today, you will have wished you became a member of the strategy number 9 course. Now remember in January, a year ago, January 2021, remember all the hopes and dreams you had of trading? At the end of the year, you'd have so much money, maybe to go on that special trip with your significant other, maybe to buy that car you were dreaming about, or maybe just to have some extra monthly capital to spend on yourself and for extra things. And most likely, I'd say about 80 to 90% of all traders, we never reach those dreams, right? I know what that's like. I was there too. It's very depressing because you put a lot of hard work and you spend a lot of money and you're just not seeing the type of results you were promised. On top of that, you're not seeing anything and you're saying to yourself, gosh, I'm not sure if I can be doing this much longer. Well, a year from today, do you want to be in the same spot where you were, coming here in 3 weeks left in the year? A year from today, I want you to be saying to yourself, gosh, I finally feel like I've got trading under my belt. I'm finally starting to become a consistent trader and I'm making my own trading decisions. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to instill in all of you, so that you don't just wake up in the morning and say, oh gosh, another losing day. You can wake up and excited the way you were when you first started trading, excited to be trading again and looking forward to all the opportunities that are going to be presented. That's what you'll be able to see using our methods. So here's the great offer we have. Next level pullback trading special. Remember, you're going to get strategy number 9, all the course rules and everything, along with a full year of the PTS Primo Charting Platform. That's a nearly $1,800 value, free, totally covered. All right, so here's the great offer. Normally, this would cost you $47.35. We're going to discount that today, so you don't have to pay that at all. We're going to drop the price down to $29.95. All right, you're going to save over $1,700. That's a 35% discount. But if that's still too much for you to come up with in one lump sum, don't worry. You can establish a payment plan. So for just a minor portion of that $29.95, you could still be up and running with a small deposit and be trading strategy number 9 this week, or paper trading, I should say. I don't want you trading right away, because Pro Trader Strategies is kind enough to establish some payment plans. So you won't have to come up with the full lump sum if you don't want to. Okay, so this is a great opportunity to take your trading to the next level. How do you do it? Here's the info right here in front of you. Contact my sister site, Pro Trader Strategies, okay? They're in charge of all the tech support. They're in charge of all the discounts on all the courses. They're in charge of setting up a payment plan. I would highly suggest giving them a call. There's absolutely no obligation at area code 310-598-6677. They have trading consultants manning the phones right now. They'd be more than happy to give you a quote. Once again, there's no obligation. They're there to work with you. They're traders themselves. They would be more than happy to discuss any type of payment plan or some type of discount. All right. Now, that link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the info page on strategy number 9, as well as the sign up page if you'd like to sign up online. Now, that's not a live link, but if you go to your chat box, then you'll be able to see that there's a live link posted there. All you have to do is just simply click that on and it'll take you right there. Okay. So I'm going to leave this information up here. Remember, once again, there's absolutely no obligation. If you'd like to contact Pro Trader Strategies, they're not going to sell you anything if you don't want to. So don't feel, obligated to buy something. I just don't want you to feel like you're afraid to call up. They're very helpful and they'll be happy to give you quotes. Now, I promised you I would be answering any question. So if you have any questions, just go to your chat box, type them in, and I will answer them as best as possible. Okay. Let's see, a couple here. That was the first one, was about the volume of the, now they can hear. Okay. Does this apply to futures? Yes, it does. As I stated, I mainly trade futures, E-mini futures, and I apply this as well. So it makes no difference what market or time frame. We have traders applying this to commodities, to cryptos, to currency pairs, and to stocks. And I just didn't show that because the majority of our students trade stocks. So I just do this for the majority of our students or prospective students, but trust me when I tell you it can. Okay, it's a great method. Someone's saying here it sounds a little bit too generic. Actually, generic is what you want, because when you have a specialized method, those are the ones that you should run away from, in my opinion, because if it's not, by generic, I assume that you're meaning that it covers everything. Well, that's what we want. We want to have it cover everything so that you can trade it with any method, and I should say any market, any time frame. See, if it's too specific, the way I've seen some webinars talk about, they say, well, this is only for stocks before the opening and in the first hour and the last hour. Well, that's too specific. You want something a little bit more generic that's able to meet all the requirements, all the different generic timeframes, generic markets. So that's the beauty of this. If you're saying it's a little bit too generic, that's kind of a quality, or that's an advantage actually. Other questions. Can this be applied with another strategy? Well, sure you can, but I mean, remember, this is a pullback method. So some other strategies are not pullback methods, they're continuation methods. So what that means is that, you know, they're not going to buy at the low levels or sell at the high level. So you may have conflicting signals. So that's just what you know, what we mean by, we say that it's probably better just to trade it with pullback if you're a pullback style trader. Okay. Now, if you want to trade different setups, if you're the type of trader that likes to trade pullbacks as well as continuations, as well as breakouts, well then sure, there's no problem with that. But it doesn't mean that you're always going to get signals on the same bar or something like that. Okay. Someone is still saying no voice. I guess that means you can't hear. Well, if you couldn't hear anything, where you're saying there's no voice, it most likely most of the traders are hearing me okay. So I think it's just probably your internet connection if you can't hear my voice. But don't worry, you will get a link to this recording, so you'll be able to watch it as often as you like. Okay, sorry about that, but I think mainly when it's your message says no voice, or I assume that means you can't hear, that's most likely your own internet connection. Okay. Any other questions while I have here? Oh yes, the price. When someone asked me to explain the payment plans, a payment plan simply means that, you know, the price is discounted down to $29.95, and we know a lot of students, beginning students or people that have had trouble, maybe they've purchased some $10,000 or $15,000 course somewhere else. They say to themselves, I don't have that much money left. You can still be up and running this week, because Pro Trader Strategies will be more than happy to set up a payment plan. That means all you have to do is come up with a small deposit. It doesn't have to mean you come up with $29.95. So they'll determine that based on your requirements, what that deposit is, and then you can simply pay a small monthly fee. So that's something you work out with them, because they're in charge of all the discounts and all the pricing. So give them a call. Remember, once again, there's absolutely no obligation. There's absolutely you know, no feeling that you're going to be intimidated to call up, because they'll just give you a quote and it's entirely up to you. Okay. That number once again is 310-598-6677. Now remember, I just showed you in those last couple of slides, those things just happened a couple of days ago, maybe even a week or so ago at the most. All right. These are happening all the time. So I want you just to know that this is not something where we cherry pick the best examples. These are happening all the time. If you're the type of trader that likes to buy at lower levels and sell at higher levels, or you're an option trader, I really think you should give Pro Trader Strategies a call, ask about the pricing and the discounts of a payment plan, and figure out if this could really help you. I really feel it can. I look forward to you becoming a student of mine in the course. So as we take one last look at our disclaimer, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday. I hope you learned a little bit. And most importantly, I really hope you turn your trading around in 2022. A great way to do that would be by becoming a student of mine in the Strategy Number 9 course. Thanks so much for attending today. I wish you the best of luck and hope to see you in class. Bye-bye.